Staying optimistic is really hard when it feels like the world is falling apart, but I've always had this bad tendency to kind of put the blame on myself for anything and everything that goes wrong in my life. You know, like always, I always try to stay positive. I always try to stay optimistic. I try to stay as happy as I can be. I like to try to think that the universe is looking out for me in ways that I don't know or I don't understand or I can't see. I like to think that everything's going to be fine eventually at some point. Things can't be terrible forever. Things you've probably heard a million times before from me or from other people, but I try really hard to just have faith and have some sort of confidence or some sort of hope that, like I said, that things are gonna work out in my favor one day or another at some point in time. You know, things will go my way because as as I've lived my life, that's usually how it happens. Things tend to just work out. Things tend to just go my way. The universe has always kind of seemingly had my back when I least expect it. Things seemingly go terribly, everything's falling apart, and then out of nowhere, things just start to come back together, start to work themselves out, I suppose, one way to put it. And so, in my lowest moments, in my worst of times, I try to just keep that in mind. I try to just think about, well, I guess think about my past and think about my future, because that's usually what leaves me feeling so overwhelmed and afraid of what's to come. But I try to just think about how things have worked out before and think about how sometimes all you need is just a little faith in the universe, I suppose, and a little trust in the world that things are going to be all right. And it's difficult. And that's how I started the video. It's difficult to keep that faith and to keep that hope, or whatever you want to call it. Desperation, faith, hope, whatever it might be, whatever feeling that you might cling on to, because I've felt them all the same and hoped whatever all the same, and just wait, wait and wait and wait for things to get better. Obviously, you know, you work towards better things, you work towards whatever you're hoping to come, but sometimes things are out of your control. Sometimes it feels like you've done everything you can and it's led you nowhere. I felt that way a lot. Feels like everything's just out of my hands at this point, and it is just a wait for the best, hope for the best, wait around for whatever comes, and just, like I said, try to keep that faith, keep that optimism, keep that positivity alive somewhere inside of you to just wait and hope for better days to come. And it doesn't always happen. They don't always come. We don't always get the better days. There's no guarantee, sadly, but 'tis the reality. Anywho, not really the point that I was trying to make. The point that I was trying to make is that, well, I don't really know what point I was trying to make. Things just suck sometimes, and there's not much you can do about it, you know? Sometimes, as much as I hope that the universe is looking out for me, and I hope that the whatever space, universe, whatever, whoever seems to be in control of everything that's out of my hands is looking out for me, you know? Just try to hope, try to keep that faith alive, try to keep that optimism, if you will. But when things don't go my way, which, I don't know, I won't say has a tendency of happening, but, you know, it's up and down, as many things in life. This is gonna bother me. I have to like triple stack this. Anyway, I tend to just take the blame on myself. I tend to find a way or multiple ways to make it my fault that things did not work out, that things didn't go the way that I hoped they would. I tend to take over accountability, if you will, and I don't know where it came from. Honestly, I should turn this all into. It's fine. Wasting time here because I can't think straight. Anywho, I seem to take too much accountability, and I take the blame for everything, even if it's not my fault. Like I said, sometimes things are just out of my hands, out of anyone's hands. It's like I keep harping on about. Sometimes it's really just seemingly up to the universe, and we are all just kind of a pawn in a bigger game or whatever, you know? And even then, I tend to find some way, somehow, something that I could have done differently, I could have done better, or I could have done this, or I should have done that, or whatever, so and so. And it's, I don't know. Annoying is the wrong word, obviously. It's really just stupid more than anything because many times that sounds a little selfish, but I mean, honestly, though, many times it's really not my fault. A lot of time things happen, things go wrong, and there's nothing that could have been done about it. There's nothing that's, I mean, I guess that's a lie. Obviously, not. I'm so lost for words right now, if you can't tell. There's always things you can do. There's always things you could have done differently. There's always some difference that you could have made or something you could have done differently that could have changed the outcome of whatever. But I guess my problem is I harp on it too much. I think about it too much or I stick on it too much. And I don't just let it go. I don't just accept that whatever happened, whatever I did or didn't do is already done, and I will just sit on it and and I guess beat myself up for it is a good way to put it, and just feel, I guess, disappointment. And I tend to feel that my own feelings are reflected in everybody around me, even if it's not true. I tend to feel like everybody around me thinks that I could have done different or I could have done better or whatever have you. See, I don't like this super tall fence. It's very ugly. I think, whoops, I think I could have done this better. Oftentimes, it's not the case. Oftentimes, I get so stuck up in my own head and so hard on myself, so down on myself that I just kind of paint feelings over everybody else. And I just assume that because I let myself down, I disappointed myself, that everybody else is disappointed in me too. And even if they won't say it, I feel it, I see it, I know it. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes that's the case. And I guess other times I find it easier to just take the fault for something. And I would rather people be, you know, blaming me or disappointed in me or whatever than whatever the actual reality of the situation is. I tend to think about my mom when I think about this kind of a thing because my mom has always had this tendency of not being very active in the household, to put it bluntly, I guess. Wait, how long has this been? Unreal. What the? What in the world? Wait, okay. That's normal. But then it gets down here and it's... Am I dumb? What the... What is going on here? I think it's because it's too short. This is supposed to be like... Whatever. It doesn't matter right now. Anyways, my mom has had a tendency for a long time in my life to just not be around very much. Mostly because she works a lot. Or I should say did, because I don't live with her anymore. So when I did, when I was living with her, and I mean even long before I chose to live with her, when I was growing up, I was just a little kid. She would work 2 jobs, 3 jobs. She's always been a workaholic, but it's always kind of been a forced thing. She's had to, you know, had to keep us alive somehow, had to keep us afloat somehow. So she's always just been a hard worker, always at work, always in and out the door, and never really stopped as I got older. Jobs changed, houses changed, different boyfriends came and left, or whatever, yada yada yada. But at one point, I had the choice to live with my mom or my dad. I finally had the choice to just choose which parent I wanted to stay with. And there's a whole story behind all that, probation and everything. And I'd been I'm just losing my voice, excuse me. I've been living with my dad for years at this point. I don't even know how long it's. I mean, I've always kind of been a back and forth thing with joint custody and whatever else, but I technically was. My dad had full custody over me, so he was my primary parent, and I technically wasn't supposed to go see my mom and like scheduled visits or whatever. It sounds a lot worse than it really was, but anywho, was like 16 or something, and I finally had the choice of which parent that I wanted to go and live with. And I guess somewhat obviously, but not necessarily, I chose to go live with my mom because I hadn't lived with her for so long. And it's my mom. I wanted to go be with my mom and whatever. And I guess it started a long time. Well, I guess it's a long time now, but it wasn't so bad in the beginning. We were never really a traditional family that sat down at the dinner table or anything like that. We were always very to ourselves, hang out in our rooms and whatever. But I always knew where my mom was, type of thing. Like, I always knew where she'd be. If I needed her, she'd be out on the couch, hanging out in the living room or whatever. And then she started bartending, which she's always been a good bartender. She was a bartender back when she was pregnant with me, many different times through her life. It's just something that she likes to do. It's a good job for her and good for her. But she's also a drinker. And so working in a bar usually meant not coming home until like midnight or later, and usually drunk. And I wasn't really a big fan of her boyfriend that we were living with at the time. He was always kind of a weirdo, to say the least, and it only got worse, but it just was weird, right? I felt very alone because my mom was always at work. I didn't really like the guy that she had me living with, and not that I really ever saw him either, because he was also usually always at work or doing whatever terrible things he was doing. I don't know. But anywho, I didn't really see the signs until a lot later as we moved out, moved on, new houses, new relationships, etc., etc. Because her and that guy did not last, thankfully. But anyway, we moved out, and it was gonna be just me and my mom finally. And this was a dream that she'd had for years. We would talk about how she could not wait for the day that she could get her own place, and it could just be the two of us or the three of us if my brother had ever decided to come join us again. Newsflash, he didn't. But point being, it was like this big dream that my mom had that we'd finally just be able to live, just the two of us, and not have to worry about anybody holding us over their thumb or whatever terminology you'd like to use. And we had that, sort of, almost. We had a place to live at the very least, and it was a nice. Losing my voice again. We had a nice place. It was a small little house, but again, it was only the two of us, so it's not like we needed much space. But as many things do, it did not last. And granted, I guess I always knew something would go wrong because it just kind of always does. But that's my negativity shining through. So much for trying to stay positive. But anywho, what I really didn't expect, and again, I suppose I should have, is that my mom would just not be around. She was very absent, and I don't like making excuses for her, but I know it's because of her working at the bar, and it's because she didn't really have any other prospects of job. And if you're making money and you're happy, why look for something else, you know? But then she would come home on these drunk nights or late nights drunk, and she would come and vent to me about how she hates working at the bar and how she hates that she always comes home late and she's drunk and she's never spending any time with me, and etc etc, things I've heard a million times before. And I didn't really care at the time because in my head, she's keeping us afloat. She's making money to keep us alive. She's got to make rent to keep this house over our head. And I was in high school. I didn't have a job. I didn't really have any hopes to get a job anytime soon. You know, I was just enjoying the freedom of living with my mom, and honestly the freedom of her not being around too. As much as I realize now how, I guess, let's see, what's the right word I'm looking for? How much of a detriment it was, or I guess more, how much of a toll it took on me that I didn't really think it would or realize that it would until a lot, excuse me, until a lot later. I kind of just was just kind of enjoying it, enjoying the freedom, enjoying the time I did get with my mom, which wasn't often, but it was often enough, I suppose. But I always have the same thing kind of ringing through my head all the time because she would say it so often to me. She would come home and she would cry. Well, maybe not cry, but she'd get emotional, as many drunk people do. And she would just get all soppy and sad. And she'd be like, I just don't want you to feel like I'm abandoning you because I'm never home, and yada, 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 yada. And I would always, I would always just, I guess, cover for her, and I would always justify it. And I'd say, no, it's okay. Like, you have to work, you have to pay bills, you have to pay rent. You know, you enjoy your job at the bar. You have friends that you work with at the bar, and you know, it makes you happy. I'll be fine here by myself all the time, fending for myself at 16 years old, which is old enough, but like, I don't know. I sometimes just think I shouldn't have had to grow up that way. I shouldn't have had to live alone, sort of half alone, whatever it was. The weird mess of my teenage years and the rest of my life before it. I just, it didn't have to be that way. And granted, there's not much I can do to change that. Or, well, obviously now. It's way too late to change that now. I'm grown up and moved on. And house is gone at the very least. I don't live with my mom anymore. My other brother does. So like no chance to make up for lost time or whatever. But I also still find a way to blame myself about it. And I get in these moments where I get sad that my mom wasn't around. I feel bad that I just didn't really have a parent in the house a lot of the times. And I get sad that she was, off getting drunk and whatever, having, I mean, she was having fun, whatever. It's unhealthy, but I'm not gonna like, I'm not her parent, and so it's not my place to say what she should or shouldn't be doing with her time, whatever. But I get sad that I don't know, I missed her, I miss her, whatever, and I stop myself and I say, like, how can I be sad about it when I chose it? I wanted to go live with my mom. I should have expected that she would not be around ever, or no, I shouldn't say ever, that's a little much, but I knew, I know who my mom is. I knew the type of person she is. I know the kind of parent that she is. And granted, I was younger, so maybe I was a little blindsided by my age or whatever. I just made 20 fence gates. Very nice. Very, very helpful. Very nice. I don't really want to. Anyway, so part of me, looking back, feels like I should have seen the writing on the wall. From years prior to being able to live with her by choice, from just from knowing the person that my mom is. And that's not to say I don't love her, appreciate her, or whatever. My mom's my best friend. She's awesome, and she knows she has her vices and her faults, and we've talked about it a million times before, but that doesn't mean it doesn't take a toll on me still. And I guess that's kind of where the problem lies, is that I never opened up about it. I never advocated for for myself. I never spoke up and said, "Hey, can you just try to come home more often? Can you just try to spend time with me and be my mom sometimes?" I never tried for myself because I felt like I was being a burden for wanting anything other than what I was getting, which was a place to stay and not having to pay rent and food, and I mean basic necessities that any child should have, right? And it's not like I went without for years. Like, I've always been sheltered and protected and fed and things like that. It's just missing the family dynamic of a family, right? I never had the I guess just simply as that. I never really had the family dynamic of my family. I don't have I don't run to my mom to confide in her when I'm sad. I don't look to my brother or either one of my brothers when it's something. I don't know anything. I don't know what you talk to your brothers about because I've never had that kind of a bond or that kind of a relationship with anyone in my family. I guess the older I get, the more I realize what it did to me or what it does to me or what it's doing to me. I don't know. I'm about to make the same mistake I just did. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure what exactly it is. And I mean, I just know it's just problems, I guess. Simply that. Just more problems to add on to whatever else is going on in my head. But I guess I'm tired of taking accountability or blaming myself or, you know, what I was trying to get to was I feel bad or I feel sad or I'm whatever feeling that I grew up the way I did or that I whatever. I honestly, the problem that it boils down to is again that it was my choice. I chose to go stay there. I choose to go live with my mom, and I chose to stay even after seeing what it was like, even after knowing that she's not gonna be home and that she's not gonna come around and that she's got her priorities and her life that she's living. And it's not to say that I didn't fit in it, you know? I've never felt unwanted or, I mean, yeah, I've never felt unwanted or purposefully neglected. You know, I've always felt loved, I've always felt appreciated, I've always felt good, I guess, about my relationship with my parents, but from an outside perspective, I also just felt in the way. I felt unnecessary. I felt like I was just more stress and more, just that one more thing to worry about. You know, sometimes I wondered if my mom would have been happier just living alone, where she didn't have to worry about coming home to anybody. But I also worry that she might not be as, I don't know, as well off is not the right word. I'm not really sure what the right word I'm looking for is, because my mom is a very unhealthy individual. She's got her habits, she's got her vices. I mean, everybody does, right? But I feel she's always had a bit of a lack of control, I guess, like when she was working at the bar. I guess my concern is I don't know if she ever would have left the bar had she not had me to kind of be that bug in her ear of like, hey, mom, you know, spending every night getting drunk is not really good for your health and not really good for your future and not really a good example to set for your child. Which, again, I was 16, 17, 15, whatever teenage years. So, like, I was old enough to know not to be my mom, right? But it just because I'm old enough to know not to follow in her footsteps doesn't mean her actions and the way she, I guess, just the way she lived took a toll on me. And again, I guess I blame myself because I feel like I chose to be a part of it. I chose to come stay with her and I chose to just look past the absence or absences or everything for that matter. I chose to just look past it all because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I thought that's what I was, you know, I thought that was my, I guess, my duty as a child or as a person or whatever was to just be appreciative of what I have, be appreciative that I am safe, that I'm sheltered, that I have a home to live in and whatnot, but I don't know. Maybe it didn't take a toll on me. Maybe I am just, I mean, maybe I got other problems. I don't know. I'm sure it's just one of many, right? Sad as that is to say, I know I have some stuff going on in my brain that I don't fully understand and don't fully know the source, I guess. Kind of stumbling over my words here, trying to concentrate on too many things at once. Like the most unnecessary fence of all time, but I want it to look nice, and everything else that I've done looks stupid to me. So, we're just gonna try it and hope. I mean, villagers don't swim. They should be fine. I feel like it does look stupid. And I don't know, dude, it's not like they're gonna be free anytime soon. I still got so much stuff to do. It's been way too long since I've been on this world. I don't know. I'm just having a day today. I miss my mom, I think, but I also don't have any motivation or energy in my body to talk to her or go and see her or anything of the sort. I am a mess of emotions and feelings, and I can't seem to get my thoughts under control today. So, I don't know. Sorry for the jumbled mess of a video, but hopefully you enjoyed all the same. Thanks for watching. I love you, and I'll see you next time.